Good morning, Jamie. How are you?
Good morning, Terry. I am great. Happy to be here.
All right. So I cannot wait to get into this conversation with you. We kind of started talking about it before I hit record, but before we get into hard decisions, just tell us a little bit about yourself, your family, and your homeschooling journey.
Yeah, I am a first generation college kid. I went to UC Berkeley as my husband did, and I got married. They kind of promise that if you work really hard in school and you go to college and you do all the things, like that's the pinnacle, right? Well, I did all the things and I went into the workforce and I got married, bought a house, and kind of realized I don't know a lot of stuff. I don't know how to do a lot of like life skills things. So I was kind of disenchanted with my whole experience. Well, we bought a house and a few years later started having kids. And then we kind of realized, oh, the school systems where we are really not great. So that's kind of what kicked off my journey into exploring alternative education.
So where are you now?
Now, I mean, we'll get to it, but I'm kind of
Uh-huh.
in this beautiful, settled place of there's such a beautiful, wide spectrum of ways to educate well. And it all is built on a foundation of sound educational philosophy
Mhm.
and kind of a confidence in our family and how I make decisions. And so now I have three of my five sons. They are 8, 10, and 12, are currently in a nearby public school. And I have my 2 and 4-year-old at home with me. But prior to that, I had homeschooled since my oldest was 4, basically,
Mhm.
all the way up until this last year. So about 8 years of pure homeschooling, all five kids, having babies, moving, doing all the life stuff. So I very much was just a homeschooler through and through.
With five boys, you said?
Five boys.
You don't have the gray hair to prove that you have five
Oh,
boys,
I
but that's
will.
okay. That's okay. I believe you. I believe you. Okay, so you mentioned in, your homeschooling story that you decided to put your three older ones into the traditional school setting this year. And I know that was a very, very hard decision to make. But I also know for various reasons that there are a lot of other homeschooling moms out there who are struggling to make this same decision, especially this time of the year when this airs. It's going to be that time where all the moms are planning, right? And they are in total burnout because it's the end of the year, right? So thank you for talking with me and having this very transparent and much needed conversation about hard educational decisions. So before we get into that, let's just back up a bit. You did say that you were a true and true homeschooler for many years. So why did you choose to home educate your children in the first place? And I'm sure it did have, like you said, something to do with the public schools in your area, but I'm sure there was a whole lot more to it. So why did you choose to homeschool?
Yeah. Yeah, that just kind of opened up my horizons that there's anything other than just going to the public school system and doing exactly what I did when I was a little kid, right?
Mhm.
So I kind of panicked when I looked at the local kindergartens and I went, oh no, what do I do? And I had a friend who was in the Orthodox Jewish community, and that's just what they do. And we would just start talking about it. We both had three little kids that I think were 5 and under. So we automatically just like, let's get together so we can survive these days. Let's go to the park. And I heard about homeschooling and I thought, what is that? And the first book I read, I will always remember it was For the Children's Sake, that it was given to me by a homeschool mom of 10 children. And she said that was one of the best books that she had ever read. I read it and I was hooked. I mean, it was like my whole world opened up, and I went, not only is this a viable alternative, but this is better in a lot of ways. This is great. This allows us to have freedom in our lifestyle choice. We're not tied to the public school calendar. I can look at how my children learn. I can kind of curate their education based on their interests, but also on their personalities and their learning styles. I just thought it was the greatest thing ever. And then I found Charlotte Mason philosophy, and I just could not get enough. I was a voracious reader for like 10 years of just all of that. And it was such a healing journey for me of all the things that I didn't particularly love with my own education growing up. Um, and I just felt like getting to homeschool and kind of do that again was very healing for me.
I find it so fun that one of, your book for the children's sake, that was one of the ones that really made an impression on me where I was like, wow, it could really be like this.
Yeah.
And then of course I was like you, I read anything and everything that I could on the homeschooling topic. And I do believe that was one book and Sally Clarkson's Educating the Wholehearted Child. Those I call those my homeschooling Bible. I reread them every summer as a way
Wow.
to just, because for the children's sake, like you said, it's more of the overall of what home education can be. It's more of a lifestyle, right? And so
Yes.
it was
Mm-hmm.
reminding me every year that it doesn't have to be school at home. And then I
Mm-hmm.
loved educating the wholehearted child because Sally Clarkson and her husband Clay do such a good job of, okay, so what does that look like? So, and I love how you said that you were looking forward to homeschooling and relearning. And I feel like that's what
Yes.
home education did for me. It
Yeah.
restored and redeemed my own education
Mm-hmm.
because, like you, I was of the generation, I was the first, my brother and I were the first ones in our family to get a college degree. My brother loved school. I hated it. It did
Mm.
not feed my soul whatsoever. So I didn't really learn much. Mostly my fault. Not the teacher or the school setting, but whatever. So yes, home education was that for me as well. It helped me restore and redeem my own education and my love of learning. So all of that are
Too.
all the reasons why moms and dads choose this home education, this alternative lifestyle. But you made the hard decision this past year to put your older kids into the traditional school system. So what was your process in making this decision? And how did you know it was the best thing for your family right now?
Oh man, it was hard. I just first want to just be very transparent about that. I had fallen in love with homeschooling so deeply that really in my mind and heart to consider anything else was agonizing to me. Like I loved the freedom. I couldn't imagine not being able to pick my children's living books that we were going to read that
Mhm.
year and do all those things. But as with life, we can't predict everything that's going to happen. And I think it's important context to just be very transparent that I had recognized that I was in an abusive marriage at that point and had started to put some boundaries in place. And when I did that, things escalated very quickly. And going through all of that to decide what I was going to do, I had to put everything in my life, I kind of had to let go. I had to ask myself the question, what am I willing to stand by? Where are my values? I was so afraid, but I just remember having a really transparent conversation with God, like, okay, in order to get out of this situation that you've identified is really unhealthy, are you willing to lose your house? Are you ready to lose your business? Are you ready to give up homeschooling? So it was such a situation where I just had to let go of every earthly thing that I had tied my safety and security and identity to and focus on the one question, which was to correct this. Like, where do I stand on judgment day? What am I going to answer for? And I made that decision. But I will tell you very transparently, it was easier to let go of my house than to consider letting go of homeschool. It was one of the hardest things. But through that decision, God really worked on me and was kind of like, don't put me in a box. If
Mhm.
I can call you to homeschool, then can I not also call you out of it? Do I not see your children beautifully and perfectly and individually? Do I not see your needs? Do I not understand what's going to happen, whatever path you choose? And do you not trust me to lead you in this situation? And so through that, I kind of recognized that, like, oh, maybe I had made homeschooling a little bit of a tiny idol in my heart. And um, the Lord needs to be my first love. And I just need to trust him with all of this. And looking back now, I can say that I do believe it is the right decision for this year. I can see the things that are working. It's not perfect. And what I want to say to everybody is that no educational model is perfect. Every single model has pros and cons. And what's beautiful about the homeschooling kind of lifestyle and thinking is I think it teaches us to be super intentional. It teaches us to consider what are the learning styles of your children? What do we want out of life? Do we want to be able to travel more? Do we want to be able to be at home and have slow mornings more? And so we get to go back and be more intentional about how we build our life and our family from the ground up. And once homeschooling teaches you how to do that, it's kind of a skill that you never lose. And
Mhm.
so I'm always going to go forward with that kind of mindset. And so ultimately, the question that I identified for my family was, what is the most important thing for my family this year? And the answer was, we need peace and we need stability. And so then everything that we were doing was put through that filter. What's going to give us peace and what's going to give us stability? And in that season, because of the particular traumas that we were all going through, homeschooling was a source of butting of heads, so to speak. You know, it was so traumatic for all of us. The last thing that my boys were interested in was, okay, we need to do our copy work today.
Mhm.
It's like, how can you ask us to do copy work when all of this stuff is going on? And I got that. And then for me too, I think it's important. I really want to share this. I recognized that my capacity as a person was different. And I had to be compassionate with myself of like, I am going through a lot right now. That last year, I had that conversation with the Lord. I was grieving so deeply the state of my marriage. I couldn't understand what was going on. I was deep in trauma. I ended up moving my house, moving Humble Hope Press in a very short time span, like 2 months, I had to move our entire life. Um, I've been in trauma therapy and working through everything that's happened. And that took everything in me as a human being. I really just did not have the capacity to have the weight of their education for that year on me. But I think it's equally important to recognize that I know families that have gone through huge life circumstances, and they've decided that homeschooling is the right fit through that season because it brought their family together.
Right.
So you don't need to be going through this kind of earth-shattering trauma to decide that it's the right thing to put your kids in school. What you need to do is have confidence in yourself that you and the Lord are the only people truly that have the insight to look at all of those individual facets of your life, of every single one of your children. You know, there's the individual child's needs, but there's the parents' needs. And then there's how you balance all of that as a family. How do you put it all together?
Mhm.
What season of life that you're in? It's so nuanced. And we really do ourselves a disservice when we look at Instagram squares and it fits for some people, but it doesn't see the nuance of your life. And so what we really need to do is just trust that we're doing the best that we can. We're being intentional to learn and to grow. And then we're seeking God and the Holy Spirit for that decision.
You bring up so many wonderful points. And I know the moms are listening, and I know there are so many moms right now going, yes, that's exactly how I was feeling, but I didn't know how to put it into words. And sadly, I'm sure a lot of these moms are thinking to themselves, I can't have this conversation with anybody in my homeschooling community, or I can't have
Mhm.
this conversation with anyone in my family and my church community because they're anti-homeschooling. And so they're
Mm,
going to push me to do something that may not be what God's calling me to do. So thank you for sharing. You brought up so many things. I love first and foremost how you said you gave yourself compassion and grace, and you realize that in this time you don't have the capacity to have that extra, not going to call it burden, but that extra educational hat on your head.
right.
There were just other things that were way more of a priority for you as a woman, as a person, as a mother, as a wife, as a believer, that you had to just focus on being healthy for
Yeah.
you and for your family. And I love how you
Yeah.
boiled it down to two things. You just had to figure out what were your priorities, and it was peace and stability. And
Yes.
you ran everything through that filter. And for other moms out there, it may not be peace and stability, or when they run it through that, maybe the stability is having the kids home because there's so much
Absolutely.
disruption at school, or maybe there is some issues with a divorce and with what do you call it, child custody things, that having
Yeah.
the child at school could complicate, let's just say, those things.
Yeah.
So running it through those filters, whatever their filters are for them in this
Mm-hmm.
season, like you said, um, how God answers that for them could be very similar to you or very different from you. But
Mm-hmm.
the fact that you gave it all to God, and so humbling, Jamie, to say that homeschooling may have been a tiny idol in your heart, because in all honesty, I think many of us homeschooling moms, we if we look at it, it's probably not a tiny little idol, that homeschooling can be a huge idol. And I love how my pastor one time said, how can you tell something is an idol? If you look at your checkbook and your calendar, and that one thing is taking up way more time and space and money than your relationship with God, uh, that might be an idol. And
Yeah.
I could say for me, you know, homeschooling was way up there in my money and my scheduling, and I went to bed thinking about it, woke up thinking about it, so, and the fact
As
that
you do.
yeah, and a lot of us too, it is our identity,
Mm-hmm.
and we don't
And I'm so
realize
glad
that.
you
Go
brought that
ahead.
up
Hmm.
because that was something the Lord really pressed on my heart as I was praying and preparing for this podcast was to just remind everybody that the form of education that you choose is not a salvation issue.
Right.
It's not even a secondary or a tertiary
That's lovely.
salvation issue. You know, God says to be unified as believers. And so I just want to encourage everybody to not let this be something that is divisive. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I was on my way to a retreat recently, a beautiful Christian women's retreat. And one of the leaders, we were just having a candid conversation. And she said to me in the back of the car, I said, I was a homeschool mom. And she said, I'm a public school mom. And just very candidly, she was like, I always feel judged by homeschool moms when I say that. And I was kind of taken aback, like, what do you mean? We don't judge. I don't judge. How, oh my gosh, not me. But then looking back at how hard it was for me to let go of homeschooling, I was like, oh, wasn't I kind of judging myself a little bit through that lens? Did I not kind of feel like I would be lesser somehow if I put my kids in public school? Um, and I just want to encourage all of us to not put undue burden on ourselves, on our children, on our family that the Lord did not put on us.
Right.
He did not say, Thou must homeschool to be a good mom. What he did say is, Trust me and follow me, and I will lead you, and seek wisdom, and I will give it to you. And just continuing to take that childlike posture before the Lord to say, I trust you. You've got this. You know me. You know my kids better than I even do. And
Mm-hmm.
as long as I'm seeking you for direction, I'm not going to go wrong.
Yeah, I love that it's not a salvation issue. It's not even a second or third or fourth. It's not an issue. And
Hmm.
like you said, we do, whether we mean to be judgmental or not, we can be, um, on all fronts. But I think because for some of us, a lot of us maybe, homeschooling, like I said, becomes our identity. And we don't realize that until you're on the other end of it and your
Yeah.
kids are grown and you're not homeschooling anymore. And you look around going, well, now what?
Mm-hmm.
Because my mothering was all about homeschooling. My community was
Yeah.
homeschooling. My friendships were my homeschooling friends. In my case, in your case, our business was homeschooling. Many of our church friends homeschool. I mean, like, there's just so much intertwined that
Yeah.
when it's all said and done, and your kids are off being adults and doing the things that God's called them to do, you sit back and go, oh, am I anything more than a
Mm-hmm.
homeschooling mom? Oh, I'm a wife, or oh, I'm a grandma, or you know what I mean? Or like
Mm-hmm.
there's just so much wrapped up in that identity. So I'm so glad that you brought that up. And it's kind of funny because yes, public school moms can feel like they're being judged by us, but it's also kind of reverse, right? But
True.
I think a
Mm-hmm.
lot has to do with like my mom. I don't think she 100% disagreed with our homeschooling decision. I think for her, it was more of a, well, you're choosing to do something different than what we did and how we raised you. And without us coming out and saying you did it wrong, which we weren't saying, that's
Right.
how it's taken, right?
Right.
So even though we don't mean for our public school friends, mom friends, to be
Right.
offended, just the fact we're choosing something different, or in your case, you were beating yourself up over it
Mm-hmm.
because you were choosing, something different. But I love how you said that, once you home educate, you're just more intentional about the education of your kids. So yes, in Deuteronomy, it does tell us when you walk, when you get up, you're teaching your kids. But like you said, he didn't say, thou said you must homeschool. He just
Mm-hmm.
said in your walks and when you're raising your kids, you're telling them about me. And so
Yeah.
I find that a lot of times when I meet with moms at conventions who are still in the public school system and they're trying to figure out, are we going to homeschool? A lot of times they, when I ask them, well, what do you do when your kid comes home and does homework? Oh, I don't know. I don't help. Or I don't know what they're doing. I don't know what book they're reading. I drop them off and then I pick them up. And so I'm not sure what to do. And so I feel like the homeschooling moms that I know, and like I told you earlier, my best friend who made that choice to put her kids back into the public school system, you guys are so much more intentional now because you
Mm-hmm.
still realize you are your child's primary teacher, whether they're
Yeah.
in the classroom for a couple of hours a day or they're home with you, right? And so I'm sure you're heavily involved in their school, you're heavily involved in their homework, you're heavily involved in helping them still succeed even though
Right.
you're not picking out the curriculum and the books and all that kind of stuff. So,
Right.
even if moms do make this hard decision like you did, you can still be 150% involved
Yeah.
in their education, as we should be, because that's what God calls us to do, not thou shalt homeschool. So,
Right. Yeah. You better believe that I'm sneaking in some narration questions every once in a while.
Charlotte Mason never dies. Okay, so home education looks very different for many different families. And I know some of your kids are in school this year, and some
Mhm.
are home. And I have friends and I have clients who have decided to homeschool one child while leaving another child in school, right? So,
Yeah.
what might be some of the reasons that a mom brings one child home or keeps one kid home and puts another child in school? And how might that look for a family when they now are balancing two different systems at the same time?
Yeah. I've done that and
Mm.
it's not easy, I will tell you, but I have 5 children and man, they humble me because as soon as I feel like I've got something figured out, the next one comes along and nothing applies anymore. We're starting over from scratch. They are so different in their personalities and in how they learn. I have one that was basically reading by 5 and taught himself multiplication. I maybe showed him things once and he was off to the races. And he could really do fine homeschooling or in public school. So my biggest concern with him is what's going to make him have better mental health?
Mm,
What environment is he thriving in? And then I have another one who is ADHD, has anxious attachment,
mm,
and he thrives on a kind of structure that it just doesn't compute to my brain and my homeschooling brain, right? Like he is such a kid that's like, okay, I'm going to go to school and I'm in homeschool, or I'm going to go to public school and I'm in school mode. And when I get home, I am off. Don't talk to me about a book. Don't talk to me. I'm relaxing. And in my homeschool, I wasn't like that. I was looking for organic opportunities to learn. And so it wasn't that either one of us was wrong. It was just a mismatch of styles
mhm,
that was hard to reconcile. Um, and then I have another one again who I think could do well either way. And it's more about the season. And I think with him, it's very much going to be a decision of the season. And he has a lot of say. He's been talking about, "Oh, maybe I want to come back to homeschool in fifth grade or this and that." And we're kind of weighing the pros and cons. Um, Whereas with my oldest right now, the question of academics isn't even the primary one. He's the one that experienced a lot and is just going through things. He's 12. All of this is going on with his family. We have bigger concerns with him than just his academics, besides keeping them on track. And then for my littles, I will say that what I want has a big say in it because I am an assistant director to a Charlotte Mason homeschool community of almost 100 students. And those people are my people. They're my
mhm.
tribe. They are my safe place. They're my happy place. And, I am very settled in my homeschool philosophy of delaying formal education till 6 or 7. They're 2 and 4 right now. And so for now, this is a great place to be, but this is where I want to be. And I'll answer the question of where they're going to be next year.
Right.
So it looks very different with every child, and that's the beauty of it.
And I know I keep saying I love that, but I love that you're looking at each child and what's best for them right now. And it's
Mhm.
not always academics or it's not always their mental health. It's not always, their physical health. It's what this kid needs right now and what will be best for them. And
Mhm.
with five of them, you have literally five different
Yeah.
decisions.
Yeah.
So it's very courageous of you to do it that way because and I'm not knocking anyone. I'm just saying sometimes all or none is just easier if we go through the filter of peace, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes peace is just put them all in school or let's just do all homeschooling so there's one schedule I have to juggle,
Yeah.
right? So doing two different things can be a challenge in itself. So for
Absolutely.
you to put their needs first is very admirable.
And I want to speak to that too, because what I realized in all of this was that I had always put my own needs last
Mm,
and kind of dismissed them entirely. And I think that's another thing that homeschool moms can really do is
we're good
it's
at
all
that.
about the kids. It's all about the kids, you know, um, and you can't do that. You have to take care of yourself. And if your children are born persons, then aren't you also a born person with needs and desires and creativity that needs an outlet? And you are a child, a daughter of God outside of being a homeschool mom. So I am super big on taking care, having creative outlets, nourishing your own soul. I mean, you're the teacher, you're the principal, you're the curriculum developer, you're the parent, you're the cook, you're so many things. Would you expect anyone that you were outsourcing those things to not ever have a day off?
Right.
Would you expect the teacher of your second grade class to not have any hobbies outside of teaching your children? No. So again, that's another place where we put undue burden on ourselves. You need to be doing something that's for you, and that's a wonderful gift to give your children.
Hmm.
To see everybody has been given gifts and talents by God and has a beautiful uniqueness about them that we can celebrate as a family.
It's so important. And you're right. As homeschooling moms, one thing we really excel, well, three things we really excel at: overcomplicating stuff, comparing ourselves and definitely not putting ourselves first, second, third, fourth, or maybe even 10th. So we excel at that. We get A pluses in all three of
Mhm.
those things.
Yeah.
Okay, so you brought up that your community are your peeps, they are your family, they are your safe spot. So even though your older kids are in school right now, you're still involved, like you said, in your homeschooling community. So tell us about that and what that looks like for you when you've got
Mhm.
some in school and you're actually leading and a part of this community.
Yeah. I will tell you that it has a lot to do with the bus. When I moved here and I was praying on whether to put the kids in school, they are at an elementary school and a junior high school, very close to my house, but they start and end 50 minutes apart. And I have two toddlers, and I'm like, we cannot be living in the car. I have to work during the day. How is this going to work? And I was praying on it and praying on it, and the bus drives up, and it's the corner of my house. It's literally out the front door of my house, and it's a very short ride. And I thought, oh, okay, that's interesting. So without that, I don't know that it would be workable. But I am at co-op all day on Mondays. And I get home with just enough time to kind of put together a snack for the big boys to get home from school. And I will say that I have noticed that I am able to be a little bit more present and relaxed as just mom. And I don't know if this was just my type A personality, but I was so like excited to look for every learning opportunity that I kind of just never relaxed into just mom. And so now, I work in the mornings and I have help with the littles, which is great. I have an aunt that lives with me. She's another huge piece of the puzzle. I don't know how I would do it without her, quite honestly. And then the bigs get home from school and we have time to just recap. Hey, how are you? What's going on today? Um, and so I've just noticed this extra presence that I'm able to be and not always be like, oh, we should read another read aloud. Not that that's bad because I'm still like that.
Mhm.
So yeah.
It's funny that you said the bus because I can't tell you how many kids I talk to that when, they say, I think I want to try school. And I'm like, well, why? Almost always, I want to ride the bus. Like, okay. Let's just
Yeah.
paint the minivan yellow and call it a day. But it's funny how so many kids, they want to go to school. The high schoolers want to go to school for prom and football games, and little kids
Mhm.
want to go so they can ride the yellow bus. That's funny.
Yeah.
But you're so right that I think one of the things that, God was teaching me my last couple of years with my son in his high school years, and it was just the two of us. And what I think he's teaching you right now in, this season of your kids being in public school is that sometimes, a lot of times, we just need to be mom. And
Hmm.
how important that is to not always be in teacher mode and not
Yeah.
always be in disciplinary mode. And I'm not saying
Hmm.
friend mode, I'm saying mom mode to just
Yeah.
enjoy them as mom and
Yeah.
just not constantly always being teacher, teacher, teacher. So,
Yeah. And that's something I don't think I would have ever truly seen or appreciated had I not stepped back. Like
mhm,
it's taken me a year almost of just like my body keeps relaxing and going like, oh, like I haven't reached this level of chill for a long time. I mean, kids probably felt that. And there was nothing bad about being excited about the history book that we're
right.
reading and the copy work that we're doing. But I can feel that it's the right thing for this season.
Mhm. And I hope the moms who are listening, whether they're thinking of putting their kids in public school or, continuing the home education, I love how you said it this year. This is
Yeah.
our decision. It doesn't mean it's going to be the same thing next year or the year after. No matter what decision or path that God puts them on, to remember what you just said. We just need to remember to be mom and to be present
Hmm.
and to give them our undivided attention when they need it, and not constantly be in homework mode or teacher mode, right? I think
Mhm.
that's, if anything, that's one of the most important takeaways from this conversation. So, all right, Jamie, we're running out of time. So tell us about your business, Humble Heart Press, your website, all your resources, and how moms can connect with you and follow you.
All right. So Homeschool Press is a homeschool printing company where you send me your PDF and I ship you a beautiful book. It's such a joy to run. I love working with homeschool families and taking off another hat that you don't have to wear, right? That's www.humbleheartpress.com or on Instagram as Humble Heart Press. Lots of fun behind the scenes there. And then I am a Charlotte Mason homeschool community assistant director, and we are actually building a kind of package where other directors can open up a community structure that we know works without having to build it from scratch, right? So if you're interested in hearing more about that, you can email us at livinglibertystudies@gmail.com.
Great. I'll make
And
sure I have all that in the show notes. Give me the
okay,
link one more time for the Charlotte Mason
there's no
or
website.
the
It's just
email. Sorry, the email.
yeah, livinglibertystudies@gmail.com. I feel like there's one more thing that I'm forgetting that I do.
Well, when you think about it, you let me
Yeah.
know,
Oh,
but I will make sure that all of these wonderful things are in the show notes and in the email that I send out when this podcast is dropped. But I did want to let the listeners know that we're partners. So all of my morning time plans, you guys beautifully print. I can't tell you how many compliments I get at conventions
oh, good.
when they see it in hard copy with the beautiful binding that you do. And so moms, any PDF, whether it's my morning time plans or some of the other partners that Jamie has at Humble Heart Press, because I know you, what are some of the other partners that you print their things for?
Oh my gosh, we have
I know
almost
there's
40
so many.
partners,
I know.
Aviary, CMEC, Beauty and Truth Math, so many
I
wonderful
know.
partners. That's the other thing I wanted to mention is that if you create a digital curriculum, I have publishing partnerships where you can focus on creation and I will print it and ship it for you. And we will take really good care of our mutual customers that way.
And you do. You really, really do. And so for the listeners out there, if you have things that you want printed or bound, just make sure you use my discount code coffee10 and you'll get 10% off of whatever you print and things like that with Humble Heart Press. So thank you again, Jamie. Before you leave me, I'd love to always ask this question. So what final words of encouragement can you share with the moms who are struggling with this hard decision or who are
Mhm.
feeling guilty or feel like they're giving up on homeschooling if they do feel like God's leading them into the public school system this year?
Oh, yes. I want to tell you that you were chosen for your children. God chose you from the beginning of time to be the mother or father to those babies. He chose you for such a time as this. He can lead you and direct you and give you wisdom when you ask Him for it. And you love your children. The fact that you're listening to this podcast right now tells me that your heart is constantly asking the question, what is best for them? And let's not put God in a box. Let's not idolize any form of education. Let's just be humble and seek the Lord and trust that you are capable of making a good decision. Um, and let that be enough. And let all of the other burdens and cares fall away. There should be no guilt. If you've put your heart and soul into making this decision, let it be and trust the Lord to fill in the gaps.
Amen. And the Bible verse about, we have enough worries for tomorrow. Worry about today like God handled today. And my husband's motto was always, we're doing it this year, but next year, who knows? For us, it just happened to be we did it year after year, but we did come back to this decision and this talk every single year to figure out, like you said, what is best for your kids and your family, and don't put God in a box. I love that. I love that. Thank you, Jamie. Moms, make sure you go check out Humble Heart Press. And if you're a curriculum creator, make sure you really go talk with Jamie at Humble Heart Press. So thank you again, Jamie.
So much for having me, Carrie. It's been a pleasure.